Welcome to the Blue Dog Whisperer. Hope all my listeners and viewers on YouTube had a great 4th of July. It is a somewhat muggy Saturday morning here in New Jersey, but my guest is not from New Jersey. He is from the Buckeye State, Ohio. Matt Diemer, who is running for Congress in Ohio's 7th Congressional District. Thank you so much for coming on today.
Absolutely. Thank you for the invite.
Thank you. How's the weather out there?
Oh, sunny, blue skies. Beautiful weekend. Gonna go
Mhm.
watch some baseball later. Go Guards.
Oh, I'm a Phillies fan, so uh,
Sorry, brother. We got you in that last series.
yeah. I don't follow it as religiously as I'm sure you do, but so Ohio's 7th congressional district is in the Cleveland metropolitan area. Is that correct?
That is correct. So it's half of Cuyahoga County, the southern, the southeastern, southwestern half, and the western part of Cuyahoga County, all of Medina, all of Wayne County, and a little bit of Holmes, the northern part.
All right. And so I was looking it up. This is your second time running for Congress in this district, correct?
Correct.
And I became familiar with you in 2022 because you were endorsed by the Forward Party, if my memory serves me right.
That is correct.
Okay. So the Forward Party obviously is kind of a centrist-based solution. I wouldn't even describe them as a party, even though they claim they are. I think that they're more of a problem solvers caucus for the people. And I want to know because I've been to Ohio a few times and I've been to Cuyahoga County, and I haven't spent nearly as much time as you have. Are you a native Buckeye?
Yeah, yeah, I am.
Hmm. How would you describe the politics of the 7th congressional district?
I would say that well, first of all, it's a Republican leaning district. I think it's about an R plus 8 to 10. So I think that a lot of people think that Ohio is a red state, but what we are is pretty much and I don't want to say a purple state. We are a workers' town, industry, factories. This is how we all grew up, pretty much blue collar, middle class in Ohio. And so our politics pretty much reflect that. If you're on the, manufacturing floor and you're, pumping out some steel or some cars or some engines or whatever, you don't really care about a lot of the fringe the issues that people are talking about. You just want to get the job done, get off work, go out, grab a beer with your buddies that are working with you, and go home and do it again. So I think Ohio is a pretty much no BS. Doesn't want to deal with a lot of the I guess the popularized talk, and they just want to get down to like what can I do to go get a good job, raise my family, and retire and have a little bit of fun.
I think the National Democrats, unfortunately, sometimes give up on districts like yours because in 2022, a lot of people thought that this was going to be a red wave, and the red wave was literally a trickle. And the DCCC put the Democrats, they basically played defense when we could have played offense. Of course, hindsight's 2020. But I believe that the most Republican or conservative district in the United States, which has a Democrat representing the district, is actually Alaska's at-large district, which I believe is an R plus 11
Right,
state. So this is definitely winnable. So
right.
and
Well,
and
if I'm correct about that, that was because of ranked choice voting.
right. And how do you feel about ranked choice voting?
I think it's a great idea.
Hmm. I think that ranked choice voting is really good. I think the problem is you have to get the American electorate to understand what it's all about, because a lot of people don't realize that so many of our presidents, I mean, forget about the Electoral College, but from a popular vote standpoint, a lot of people have held this office without getting over 50% of the electorate, a majority. And
Right,
that's a problem.
right. Yeah, you're 100% right. And here's I think that the thing is that yeah, you're right. Ranked choice voting is a great idea. It's going to put a lot more issues at the forefront instead of just politics and candidates, and how they're either catering to the far left or the far right. And I think Ohio would be one of those states that very much benefited from that, because if you know about Ohio politics, which it seems like you're a politics junkie, um, Ohio hasn't been voting the way that people expect it to vote for being a red state. And so they're not really following the playbook. Like, we're just going to be Republicans and we're going to all stand by Republican policies and Republican talking points or whatever those are. Ohioans are very conscious of the issues of the implementation of said issues and how they're going to affect their lives. And so, as you see, when Ohio voted for abortion, or categorizing abortion in our Ohio Constitution, that was 57% of the state. when it came to protecting our Constitution and allowing a simple majority to change the Constitution and advocate for legislation that affected them in a simple majority manner. We made sure that we protected that. Marijuana rights is one of those ones where, there was a lot of people, especially I would say very conservative members that didn't want marijuana rights because of, I guess an old maybe reefer madness stigma of marijuana. And Ohio, again, 57% came out. So issue based, you can see that Ohioans, I think, are very focused on what it would do for them and how it will affect our state. Um, and I feel that ranked choice voting would just amplify that.
Right, because it allows voters to express the nuance of the election. Uh,
Absolutely, absolutely, and sometimes even flip across party lines. I like Matt Diemer; he's my number one choice. But what is my number two choice when it comes to Congress? And that could be a Republican, that could be an independent, that could be another Democrat that might be a little more liberal or moderate. It could be somebody else from a outside party. And you know what? That's what I think democracy is all about: is giving people the choice and allowing the collective vote to decide who represents them.
I couldn't agree with you more. And you point out so many issues about marijuana, about reproductive choice, and so many, and even, I mean, if my memory serves me correctly, after Governor Kasich got into the state house, he would try to strip collective bargaining rights from union workers, and it was defeated on the ballot in a really overwhelming manner. So on so many of these issues, Buckeye people are aligned more with the Democratic Party, yet in national elections, and governor's elections and other things in your state, people have been voting Republican. What do you think the National Democratic Party is doing wrong that they can't resonate with these voters like they once used to?
Oh man, that is a very, very good question. I can't say what they're doing on a national level because I think that when you have a party as big as the Democrats, it's really hard to make a niche of your policies, right? And I mean that by like, look, if you're, running in California, which is obviously a more liberal left-leaning state than say Ohio or in New York City to upstate New York, if you're on a national level and you're the DNC, it's like, how do I make a policy that can get the most people into the fold as possible and still cater to some of these strongholds that we have in the either inner cities like Cleveland and New York and Los Angeles, but also try to get people in that are in different places from Kansas and rural Ohio, places in Ohio 7. And so what we see is, in my opinion, the Democrats trying to find the population centers and make sure that the messaging reflects them. Where I think that Ohio is being left out and places in Ohio 7th is being left out of that messaging is that the places that we see that have turned blue to red were historical places like your Ford manufacturing plants, your steel workers, and so on and so forth, where they see their jobs, where they see their communities, where they see their tax money and their population dwindling, and they're wondering where are the Democrats that used to be the dominant force there, that used to be a union town, that used to have that all that support. Where are they to help us bring that back or pick us up and help us, restructure this community after our jobs went overseas and so on and so forth. And so, if I was the Democratic Party, is I would make very very clear segments within the party that can cater to messaging and candidates that cater to messaging for the populations of Los Angeles and New York City and so on and so forth, more liberal places, and then also put a very very committed team and candidates to really bring back the places that they felt that the Democratic Party has left them. And that's why they're going to the Republicans. And because they're saying like, hey, we were Democrats. Our jobs went away. Can Republicans bring these jobs back? Can Republicans bring our community back? Can Republicans bring this taxpayer base back? I don't think that the Republicans can do that, but I think the Democrats can. It's just that we are not specifically focusing on that.
What do you think the Democrats are focusing on by and large right now?
I think that what I do think is I do think that the Democrats are changing the talk of what we should be focusing on when it comes to jobs and growing our infrastructure and our economy and so on and so forth. And that's why you see President Biden and his administration passing the CHIPS Act and Infrastructure Act and so on and so forth. but we need to do that more, and we need to do that localized. We need to go into and get candidates that go into places like West Virginia, places like, Brook Park, Ohio, places like, there's all over the country, places in Michigan and so on and so forth, where the Democrat power base, the structure, and the voters are dwindling. And to be honest with you, rightfully so, is people are wondering what's going on in my community. And so, yeah, I think there's just got to be a lot more focus in those areas, but specific candidates and specific messaging for those areas.
Right. Tell me a little bit about the issues that are going to resonate with your voters.
Look, there's a lot of issues that resonate with specific voters, and I don't like to. I'd like to make sure I meet voters where they are, and I want to make sure that I'm answering their specific questions. Because if you've been on the campaign trail, you know that every voter has their own issue that they care about deeply, and they will tell you, they will let you know that says, "Hey, I was looking at your pamphlet, I was looking at your website, I did not see this issue. That's what I care about." And you're like, oh, well, let me make sure that it's on there, or let me make sure to tell you how I feel about that. What I am running on, and as you see on my hat, it's make Congress work again. Look, I feel that Congress is broken. I feel that the incentives don't align for Congress to do a job for the people. And I think that we see that with the votes that I was just telling you in Ohio. Ohio, when they're faced with issues, specific issues, they vote in ways that are benefit for Ohioans, not for a party, but for themselves, for Ohioans. And we see Congress going in and making laws and legislation, or not doing anything, but just making sure that they are protecting themselves, their jobs, and their futures. I'm talking about the Congress people, and not looking at the constituents. And so, to make Congress work again, we need to make those incentives align. We got to get the lobbyists out of it. We need to change campaign finance. We need to ban stock trading. We need to make sure that there's no Congress to lobby pipeline, Congress to the board of directors pipeline of a company. We need to put on term limits and make sure that we are making these incentives that allow Congress to work for the people and the vote of the people, not for passing legislation that pumps the price of my stock that I'm holding. Voting for, say, a war or a bill or what have you that pumps the price of the stocks I'm holding. That helps my lobbyist so I can get out of Congress and I'll get a nice $500,000 a year paying job from them. Those are the things that we need to take out of there so the incentives go back to the voters and the people.
President Biden was the first president to win the White House without taking Ohio since Kennedy. Do you see Ohio ever going for a Democrat for president in the near future?
I mean, I can't predict the future. I mean, the right candidate, Ohio will. Obviously, I think that we look. Candidates matter. The who they are matters. Their messaging matters, and how you feel about their authenticity matters. I absolutely can see Ohio going for a Democrat in the future, 100%. But it is going to have to be the right candidate, and it's going to have to do what I just said: address those issues that are plaguing the cities that have, like I said, that have seen Democratic support in the past, that is seeing less now, and really meet them where they are.
Right. Now, tell me a little bit about how you think President Biden's presence on the ticket will affect your race and races down ballot in Ohio, including Senate and the local level.
That's a good question, man. It's not benefiting. And look, I just want to make it clear that with some of the experience of President Biden, who has been running for the past, and working in Washington, for the past 50 years, he has done his public service, right? And I think that the acts and the bills that he's passed, and the legislation that he's helped pass and foster through this presidency, has put us in a better place. Unemployment is down, stock market is up. We have, we're building infrastructure, and we're onshoring some supply chain and products that's going to future-proof America in terms of jobs, in terms of manufacturing, in terms of national security. But with that said, his debate performance the other day was, I wouldn't even call it lackluster. And it makes a lot of people wonder what the Democratic Party is doing. And the thing is, we have to, when you have that at the top of the ticket, what falls down onto the lower levels of the ticket is us defending the top of the ticket and convincing people that we're running our own race. And so to answer your question, how does him being on the ticket right now affect us? It makes our workload very hard because it has shifted our focus from running on our platform to defending his and convincing people that we are running our own race and it doesn't have to have anything to do with the president. I'm running for Congress. That's the president, and we need to focus on why I'm running in our district. So it just makes it more complicated.
Right. And I want to know if you do get into Congress and Donald Trump is the president, are you prepared to work with him in any way that you can to make a positive difference in the lives of your constituents?
Work with somebody to make a positive difference, absolutely. But also, you have to understand we have to be a check and balance on the power of the presidency. This is a part of the government with the Supreme Court, the Congress, and the executive branch. And both of those have to happen at the same time. And you have to be very vigilant in this position. So, if it is working with the Trump administration to make sure that we're reshoring our supply chain, creating great jobs, making sure that small business thrives, making sure that these towns, like I spoke about, that have maybe lost manufacturing, is getting some of that back, then yes, absolutely, absolutely. But then again, you have to be vigilant about the directives of the executive branch in the wake of things like January 6th and you know things that happened in Georgia. So those are all things that we would do at the same time.
Your district voted for President Trump twice, if my memory serves me correct. Am I right about that?
I'm sorry, excuse me.
Your district voted for President Trump twice.
Yeah.
What do you think the constituents who voted for the former president see in Donald Trump that they just don't see in President Biden?
Um, Look, a lot of these places are just red communities. If we're talking about different values, or we're talking about religion, we're talking about just conservative, values. That's just, let's just say that that's just who they are, and that's absolutely fine. That's absolutely okay. Um, I think that what they're seeing in Trump right now is, I guess, what we said earlier is that, they were very blue at one point, and they're wondering about what is happening to my communities. And if you're judging the nation based off of what's happening in your backyard, when it comes to, like I said, jobs that have left, and so on and so forth, then you are going to blame the people that were there before you, right? Like, this didn't work. I'm going to try this out. If that doesn't work, I think they'll come back to the Democrats, and it's just the nature of things. So I don't think they actually see anything in Trump per se. I think they are seeing what's happening in their backyard and in their communities from a hindsight point of view, and saying like, hey, where did that manufacturing plant go? Where did that job with great pensions and benefits go? And how can we bring that back? And I think that Joe Biden, I think that the Democratic Party is one that is really looking at that right now. I don't know if Donald Trump is. Look, Donald Trump is not going to be doing that. So I just hope that they look at me as a candidate and know that I am going to be very much fighting for this district.
I want to talk a little bit about what's going on right now regarding the Senate race in your state. Sherrod Brown has been there for many, many, many years. Do you think that he will win re-election?
Sherrod is probably one of the kindest, most welcoming people I've ever met.
Mm-hmm.
Let me tell you a story. I I campaigned back in 2022, as you know, new candidate. Nobody knew me. It's absolutely fine. I walked into a pizza shop. He was having this, I don't know, town hall thing, and I've talked to him once before on the phone through a mutual friend. Before I got into the race last time, I asked him for some advice. He said, go for it, do these couple things, and he took a time out of his day, and I was very grateful. And I was late to this town hall, probably by about a half hour, and I just stumbled through the crowd, shuffle my way into the back and sit down. Didn't have any logos or anything on, just a dude in the crowd. He stopped whatever he was doing and said, hey, by the way, Matt Diemer, running for U.S. Congress, just walked in. Give him a round of applause. Please support his campaign. And everywhere I went after that, he would stop what he's doing if he saw me in the crowd, and he would say, Matt Diemer running for Congress. Nobody's ever done that. Nobody. No senators, no other Congress people who are incumbents, no nobody. And so one of the most inclusive and kind individuals I've ever met was Sherrod Brown on the campaign trail. And so he deserves to be there.
I agree with you. In fact, actually, before President Biden and all the other people jumped into the race in 2020, I would have said that Sherrod Brown should run for president.
I think a lot of people have said the same thing.
Yeah, no, it's interesting that he did. I think that he was
What
supporting with the idea, but what do you think?
I don't know. I don't know. Right now he's running for the Senate. We need him there. We need him to keep the majority there. And look, he's a good man. There's some policies obviously that we might disagree with, which with everybody we would.
Right.
But he is an absolutely good person. One thing a lot of people don't know is he writes personal letters to every candidate. He has endorsed a lot of people. It's just that extra touch that knows that we're all in it together. And it means a lot. It really does. So he gets my 100% support.
Well, he's a blue collar union guy, so of course he thinks that we're all in this together because we really are.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And I don't want to give too much publicity to your opponent, but how has your opponent failed the district? And what will you do better than him? And I realize that this is going to be a long answer because I've looked into your opponent's background and I know that you will be a vast improvement over him. But I want to hear your thoughts.
Oh man. Look, I don't again, you're 100% right. I don't want to give him too much time. Look, he failed his constituents, which he failed his constituents. He failed the people who voted for him. He moved into the district. He's not even from the district. He came in to make sure that Anthony Gonzalez got out because Anthony Gonzalez voted to impeach Trump. Uh, look, if you want to just come down to the brass of who we are as people, I grew up, working for everything. He was handed everything because he had a rich grandfather and he lives off a trust fund. There was never one time that he ever had to go and wonder where he was going to get next paycheck, how he's going to afford rent and things like that. I absolutely have. And look, I don't like these whole like I've struggled, I was this, that, or that makes me qualified. No. But if you're advocating for people in Washington and making sure that you're passing legislation to lift up all boats and be that rising tide, he doesn't know about the tide. He never had to ride the tide. He never had to be in the boat. And so I think people just have to understand that he's here for himself. He's only here for Donald Trump. He only moved to seek revenge for somebody that took a vote, which is actually Gonzalez was a very good man, a very, very good representative. And he just can't relate, to be honest with you. And so we can go into like all kinds of different policies, but I don't even think that really was what mattered. The people who put him there is not getting what they want out of him. The people who want something from him, he doesn't know what the hell they want because he's never been there. And so he's just not the guy for the job.
So he's a carpetbagger, kind of like Dr. Oz.
He's not kind of a carpetbagger. He is a carpetbagger, and somebody who has not lived the life of everybody in his district. So Mr. Soft lotioned hands over there with his trust fund doesn't get it. He just doesn't get it. And I just don't understand how people can expect that kind of person to go to Washington and pass legislation to talk about childcare. He doesn't have to worry about that. To talk about retirement, his has been set since he's been a baby. To talk about pensions, good jobs to unions, and so on and so forth. Healthcare, he's never had to worry about that. So it's like health insurance, he's never had to worry about that. So if you want somebody that in Washington that has been there and advocate for the people in the day-to-day lives that you're facing, if it's mortgages and interest rates, he can say all these different things. He paid $1.4 million for his house cash. He's not worried about a mortgage. He's not worried about interest rates. He's not worried about a new car. He's not worried about his car breaking down. He's not worried about the babysitter and costs so I can get a night off. He's not worried about his health care. He's not worried about deductibles. So he's just not the guy.
Right.
You don't get if you want things to change in your life, those are the people you keep out. Dude, you do what you do. That's fine. You live a great life. I support it and I'm happy for you. But if you want things to change in Washington, that's not the people you bring in.
Right. Especially since his votes do not reflect the values of your constituents or your future constituents, because I know you're going to win.
I appreciate you.
And the last thing they need is a trust fund baby. So I get what you're saying. Want to ask, you are a businessman. Tell me a little bit about your business background.
Uh, I ran a lot of venues, for example, so in general manager positions and managing staff, and so that's mostly what I've done throughout my career. And then I started a small business, which was a small media company, as a podcast and publications and media and so on and so forth, which we were so happy to get acquired, years back, and then so yeah, that's what we were doing. Yeah, managing staff, managing venues, and then stumbled into a small company that we became very popular.
How long have you been doing? How long have you been in charge of the company for?
Oh, I sold it a long time ago.
Oh, okay. All right. I should have looked that up a little bit.
No, it's not something that I make public that much. It wasn't. It was a lot of money, but not a lot of money. And
Right.
so it was something that that was a cool thing to do. Moved me to San Diego, got to meet a lot of really amazing people out there and work with great people. Moved me back to Ohio, where I gave me a little flexibility to do different things. If it's my own personal hobbies, to volunteer, to get involved with politics, and then run for office. So it allowed me the flexibility to pursue some um, hobbies, passions, and to work for the country that I love.
Interesting. Who would you say some of your political role models are?
Political role models. Huh. I don't know if I really have many political role models, to be honest with you. I like ideas. Um, I like ideas more than I like. Yeah, I don't know. That's a hard question. I would have to come back on that.
All right. Well,
I was a big Obama fan. I was a Bernie bro. Andrew Yang, I met him down in Florida, and we spoke quite a bit. And I read both his books. I think he has two, right? Might have more now. And I liked a lot of his ideas. And honestly, Andrew was one of the first people that was talking about AI and driverless cars and how that's going to affect the biggest employer of men. When truck driving,
right.
and and that was just really looking ahead of what's coming. And I think that we have to start doing that with AI and driverless cars and all these other automations that are coming up. And we need people like Andrew that are thinking ahead and starting to talk about these things and putting policy in place. Because to be honest with you, there is really that's a really complex issue to discuss. Um, you can't stop technology and innovation and growth, but also at the same time, you can't have let that growth take away the biggest employer of men in the country, overnight. And so there's a balance in there that has to really be worked out.
Well, Andrew Yang is definitely a visionary. I canvassed for him when he was running for mayor of New York City. I actually went to Forest Hills, Queens, because I thought that he would have made a great mayor. Was disappointed he did not win the primary, even with ranked choice voting, which he was a big supporter of. So unfortunately, it happens occasionally. Now, I think that a big issue that really got helped the Democrats take back control of the House in 2018 was healthcare. What are your thoughts on healthcare, and what's your plan for healthcare going forward?
I'm a huge fan of a single payer system. I lived in Taiwan for 2 years, and they had that. Even though being a foreigner there, I was able to buy into the system. I had to get a couple surgeries there myself while I was there, and saw the doctor, and it was affordable. It was, oh, we have a mom and her some baby deer running outside. Sorry,
Oh yeah,
distraction.
they probably
Um,
heard our podcast and want to vote for you too, but I don't know if they're 18.
well, the babies aren't. The mom might be.
The
So
mom,
anyway,
and you want to give her
um,
full child care.
absolutely.
Hmm?
No, no, no. So, I experienced and I experienced healthcare that was really easy, affordable, and efficient. And I would love to do that the same here. And with that said, I would love to have a public and private option.
Mhm.
And I think that we just have to be very efficient with it and being very smart with it, as well. Like there are some surgeries, there are some there's care that are 100-year-old technologies, 200-year-old technologies to set a bone, get stitches, to take care of a cold, antibiotics, insulin, and so on and so forth. There is no reason that that can't be free or extremely low cost just to cover the cost, because they're not like huge big tech things that are just cutting edge. It's like let's just and most of healthcare are just those basic things. My kid has a sore throat. Is it gonna be okay? Can I get, some antibiotics, or can I get some medicine to make his throat feel better? Those are the things that you really want to go to the doctor for. And those things should be very accessible, very affordable. They shouldn't be a $500 to $1,000 a month insurance plan for your family. And that's what I want to get to, is a way where basic healthcare is free or very, very cost efficient from a single payer system. And then, supplemental insurance and private insurance can also be part of that as well.
Right. I think single payer is a great idea. I think that Medicaid for all would be the way to go. Basically, people could choose the plan from the private insurance company that best suits them. So basically, the government will pay for it, but it's private providers based on the consumer's needs. That's kind of where I come from. It. I don't know what your
I do want to push back on that, because I do think that we are getting hosed by the insurance companies and by the healthcare system. And so before I would say any U.S. taxpayer dollars goes into the healthcare system, that we talk about prescription drug prices, we talk about cost prices, talk about care, we talk about doctor visits, we talk about hospital stays, and we make sure that those prices are reasonable,
yeah, you need price
right?
controls.
We need to make sure that we can negotiate, or we can buy direct, and we can have hospitals that aren't going to gouge you and take all kinds of profits because it's $10,000 a night for a bed. Not acceptable,
No,
right?
it's not.
So
And
before a single dime of the taxpayer money would go into a single payer system, we have an efficient system that is fairly priced, not what we have now.
right, like the aspirin costs $40 sometimes at the hospital when you can
Ridiculous.
get it at the gift shop downstairs for a bottle for like $10 maximum.
And then they'll relabel it and name it different things, and people don't know, because it's like, oh, it's labeled with this special name, this brand from this other company, and it's just like, don't you're bamboozling people.
It is
These
be
are these are these these are the things that, like I said, have been around for hundreds of years or 100 years, that should not cost that much. Aspirin, like Tylenol, insulin, um, pick your antibiotic, stitches, setting a bone, some taking care of yourself when you're like this is cheap. This is free almost. So it's like, let's get those prices under control.
I completely agree with you 1,000%. We only have a few minutes left, so any closing thoughts, and do you have a website?
Absolutely. Yeah. So in order to make these things that we're talking about happen, if we have to make Congress work again. And in order to do that, we have to make sure we disincentivize Congress to work on their own behalf. And what I mean by that is, if they're in Congress and getting cozy with lobbyists so they can get a job if they lose their election, that's for them, not for you. If they're making legislation to trade stocks to get rich in Congress from insider trading and passing legislation and manipulating the markets, that's for them, not for you. Um, so, and if they're doing that for over 50 years, and they're able to just roll into the office because of incumbency and their connections with big donors, that's for them, not for you. And so we need to change all of that and make Congress work again so it works for the people. And you can check more about that platform at diemerforcongress.com. That is DIEMER for Congress.com. My socials are there, my platforms are there, and my donation button is there as well.
Well, I donated a few days ago, and I'm making an endorsement for you, Matt Diemer for Congress, the bipartisan Buckeye. How do you like that?
I love that. The bipartisan Buckeye. I'm using that. I'm stealing it.
Excellent. I'm glad I could be of assistance. So check him out, and thank you so much for coming on. Pleasure to have you, and good luck on your race. I'll help out any way I can from New Jersey.
Thank you, Evan. Appreciate you.
Thank you.